Should be live. Hello, welcome to RPG with DBJ. And yeah, we're going to continue to talk about it because it is all over my feed. And I think in this corner of the interwebs, we need to talk about what we're going to do. You already know what the subject matter is going to be. It's about the Hasbro / Wizards of the Coast open game license 1.1. But what do we do now? What are our actions going to be? What options do we have? How do we feel about it? We already have a comment from one of our co-hosts, but let, let's get into it, shall we? All right. We guys, we really need to talk about what will our actions be going forward. Because it's, sorry, my locks are itching the back of my neck because I've got my Mandalorian cover on. All right, so we everyone who's anyone in the tabletop role playing community knows now that um yeah, Mike knows now, especially with statements coming from the largest producers of content. Mike Gould mentions Frog God Games put out a statement. Cobalt Press put out a statement. Um, they literally put a flag in the ground, a black flag in the ground. Um, there's the movement for open RPG or open D&D, and I mean it, it, the people at WoTC. I'm sorry, I'm conflating the two because in my head canon. So let's talk about a little bit of head canon here. Hasbro to me are the pit fiends, right? They're the lawful evil ones. I think the people at WotC are dumbstruck, right? Because over time, I think we've all known and seen the staff over at Wizards of the Coast start to like shift and change. I think some people left because if they haven't seen the writing on the wall, they probably felt something. Also, we know that their staff isn't that large. They hire a lot of contract staff. You know, they're in for a short time and they dump them. And I think it behooves us not to throw hate at the staff members, because if that was my dream job and I got there and they did the proverbial thanks for moving up. Okay, you guys have seen this before, right? Where, or maybe even you've gone through it, where you're middle management and they give you a promotion and you feel really great, and then the very first thing they want you to do is fire somebody. I feel like the staff at WotC is kind of like that. Like, yay, we got our dream job and poison pill, and they're just like, oh, like none of them want to say anything at all, right? They still want to get paid, but ooh. Mike says the community of third party creators need to band together and create everything and anything not associated with Wizards of the Coast. I have to agree with you so much. And I think this growing pain, and it's going to be painful, is the fact that Dungeons and Dragons, the IP itself, the brand identity, not even the material that they've created, it's not an opinion of the quality. It's the brand identity is the vast majority of the pie. When the average person thinks of role playing games, the person who hasn't role played in a long time, the person who, it's rare that an individual that was in the game and left, their first game wasn't Dungeons and Dragons and they don't associate it with it. It's a huge thing. But here's the deal. Much like penny stocks, much like meme stock that we've had today. But let's go with something else. Much like taking second-rate superheroes like Iron Man and turning them into multi-billion-dollar industries. We as a community have the influence to take other games like Cypher System or companies like Frog God Games, like Cubicle 7, um, like oh man, my brain just shut down. Anyway, take all these brands and lift them up. Take a Blades in the Dark and lift it up in the air. Take a Call of Cthulhu or any of the Trail of Cthulhu or any of those kind of games and increase their market share by us basically go digging into the market. But there's more than that. Dojo Break, and listen, I read all your comments there, dude. I'm going to call some of these up here because one of the very first comments here, Proton Neutron mentions, no big deal. Here's a solution. 1, stop buying Wizards of the Coast crap. 2, stop making material using WoTC IP. And 99% of the SRD is not copyrightable. Done. I can't disagree with that choice. I can't. I mean, we've gotten a statement from I believe it might be Cobalt Press and some others talking about scraping out all of the SRD and then releasing it. There's talk about people releasing system agnostic materials. There are some people that have gone long enough in their Kickstarters that they've got to release them. And I listened to a video the other day. It was yesterday or the day before about a guy, and I'm not making fun of him. It sounded like he wanted to cry because he hired artists and layout, and he's got to pay people, and he's got to release this thing, and he's like, if I release it, is it automatically illegal? Like what? Yeah, Night of Your Life. The answer is easy. Change to a different RPG system. I can't agree with you more. I mean, what I don't want us to do is fracture the RPG community, and I don't want us to get siloed. So what I mean by that is, let's pick Cypher System, Monty Cook. We've got ourselves Frog God. We got ourselves Cubicle 7. We have a number of larger creators and a ton of small ones. And what I hope we don't do is fall down the silo. So an example would be Cobalt Press puts out their own game system, and people go, "Well, I'm moving there." And what I don't want us to do is to tribalize ourselves. We're human beings. We love ourselves some tribes, right? Big, small, whatever. And I don't want us to go, "Oh, you're playing Pelgrane Press's, RPG. You should move over here because Pelgrane's, open license isn't as good as someone else's." I kind of see that happening a little bit because I've heard some comments about like, well, if somebody signs the license, I'm not going to support them, and I'm going, they still got to pay some bills. Anyway, for our co-host here, Mike's says Frog God is doing Black Flag. Oh, that's it. I mistakenly said Cobalt. Frog God is doing Black Flag. Cool name. Cool name goes here. Yes, is starting up. Green Ronin's age system isn't D&D adjacent, so it's great alternative. Savage Worlds is an option. Absolutely, absolutely. All those are great options. Savage Worlds. Going over to Savage Worlds is, I wouldn't say it's rules light, but it's rules easy, if that makes sense. It basically, instead of bonuses and penalties, it uses dice as its step dice. I don't know if that's a term we use in the community, but step dice, you move up and down the steps, D4 to D6 to D8, or down from D10 to D8 to D6, that kind of thing. Mike says, yeah, my cover artist, Sarah, was hired on at WoTC right before this fiasco. Yeah, can you imagine being like, oh, we're going to walk you around. We're going to introduce you to your dream job. Oh, by the way, we're going to, here's the document that we hope no one ever sees. You're like, I just moved here. Damn. Mike continues to say, I'm wondering how many people walk away from WoTC as players just on principle. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of you guys here making comments. Oh, no, moving too quick. Oh, man. Ha. Well, I actually wanted to do a video on Chat GPT and writing and that kind of thing because Dojo Breaker mentions this. I also wonder if Chat GPT could help people get used to new system to answer noob questions about without judgment. I don't know. Um, I fear companies using a Chat GPT to try to like promote their materials without having to pay really good writers. Um, Dojo Breaker mentions, I think, Powered by the Apocalypse can easily eclipse some of the options you guys are talking about. There we go. Okay, now my chat stopped moving. Cobalt Press is making their own OGL. Exactly, and actually, you could, if you type in, you can do a Google search for games that have open OGLs. Like, let's look for some. Let's see. That's Mongoose just came up. Uh, Fantasy Light. There's also what's the way to explain? There's also Open D6 is one. Let's go to Wiki RPG Net. Let's see here. All right. Let me read some of these off. Let me get back into the chat and then I'll read some of these off here that I found. Wonder how many people walk away from WoTC as players just on principle. I think a lot of people will because it's kind of like it's kind of like someone beating up on a family member. It's like you get to do it, but don't let somebody on the outside do it, right? Like you may have a sibling that you like really have a contentious relationship with, but don't let somebody from the outside be like, yeah, they're an a-hole, and you're just like, what did you say? Oh man. Yeah, I agree with you. Night for your life. Yeah. Easy answer. Change to a different RPG system. Dojo Breaker says Matt Koval said it well recently. D&D 5e is seen by many as a great character creator, but I think Powered by the Apocalypse can easily eclipse that. Yeah. Narrative games. It's going to be difficult to not difficult. I think we will have to change our mindset to bring in new players, and it might be pretty strange to have as people flock into Dungeons and Dragons, because remember, there are lots of people who do not know what's going on or are vaguely familiar with it, but the brand identity of Dungeons and Dragons still sounds like quality to their ear. It would be pretty interesting to go there and find out all the DMs and all the world creators are like, yeah, we left. It's all players and no DMs. It'd be pretty interesting. Alex C says, I've never played 5e. I've heard it's not good for DMs as important stuff DMs need to run the games aren't detailed in the game rules. Very, very closely accurate. There are not many there's not much DM support in 5e. And listen, I don't mind. I think there's a place. There are terrible misconceptions about consensus ruling because people think, oh, if there's no rule, then the DM's just making it up on the fly, and that's not necessarily the case. Usually, any game that has a great engine to it, the engine being the basic rules, like roll a d20 and add or subtract a modifier, or grab a dice pool and roll dice, see how many sixes show up. Any game that has an engine, a DM usually falls back on the engine. They don't make up stuff on the fly. They use the engine, and letter two, they also will do a consensus ruling. Hey, everybody, what do you think is a great, or I think there's a 26% chance of you being able to jump across the cliff. What do you guys think? So and consensus ruling means that the group agrees to what should happen, and that part of it, I mean, you have to give that credit, right? If the consensus says one thing, then I don't see anything wrong with it at your game table, no matter what you do, right? Everybody agrees, so hey, let's do it. Oh, Doja says, I wonder. Oh no, Powered by the Apocalypse can eclipse the character creation selling point of 5e. Oh, absolutely. Narrative games that are where players create a character based on the narrative in their head, not by numbers first, is a great way to bring new people into the game, into any game, right? Oh, I want to play a character, and then you narratively go, like Fate does this really well, right? Like, oh, well, what kind of characters do you create? I want to create a billionaire playboy. Okay, let's write down billionaire playboy, as opposed to going billionaire playboy. Okay, now we need to go to the wealth system. You said playboy, so you probably have to have a high influence or charisma or convince people. Plus, we want to add down some other like etiquette skill, like um, narrative styled games are really great for doing that, because then all the player has to do is describe what they're doing, and then you just use the engine instead of getting nitpicky with the rules. That's just my opinion. uh, Dojo Breaker mentions Pathfinder 2 is incredible. Yeah, but I can imagine Powered by the Apocalypse matches with the what's your character's um Jungian sorry, archetype kind of thing 5e players like. Yeah. I think Dojo Breaker said it better than I did. Mike says there's more DM support in Xanathars than the DMG. That's poor writing and editing. Listen, I don't think anyone thought, when they were talking about one D&D and rewriting the game, I thought in my head, I was like, well, why wouldn't they just make a new book with all of the material, supplementary and editing and errata material, and the what was it, Sage's Corner and all that stuff, where they were like, oh, maybe we made the rules too loosey goosey. I thought they were just going to combine all that together into one big book, right? Or at least update the books in the terms of like, oh, we didn't put enough detail with this, or we want to change, I don't know, like go separate the bonus actions out into a three action structure like Pathfinder 2E or something like that. I figured that's what they were going to do. This whole thing, I was like, what? I don't get it. All right, Night of Your Life mentions D&D will end up being something for people who like microtransactions. Yeah, we never talked about that this side of the internet. The rest of you will go back to being fractured between the systems you like the most. That is how it was in the 80s and 90s. There was a lot of siloing in the 80s and 90s. Al Qadim, Dark Sun, Mystara, Greyhawk. I'm trying to think of all the different box sets. Planescape, and as people dive, Ravenloft, as people dive down their silos, they didn't poke their heads, reach out of the silo to support the other fracturings, and that's kind of what I'm afraid of. The electronic microtransactions and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they're trying. Hasbro's trying to shut down competition, right? They want to scrape the money off and shut down competition so that Dungeons and Dragons is synonymous with role playing. And with a viable VTT, I can see Hasbro very easily pulling back their license, which has nothing to do with the OGL 1.1. They could scrape their license back from Roll20 and Foundry and um, Fantasy Grounds and those places, and then prevent those places from allowing others to host 5e content. Oof. Oh man, yeah. Yeah. I that but Night of Your Life, I am afraid of the fracturing. And like I said, we like to be tribal as well. Hey, I belong to group A, you belong to group B. And then we start making judgments about the other groups. The group I belong to is perfect, everybody else's group sucks, or whatever. And I understand. Today it's like, what are we going to do? And I understand that the livelihood of a lot of these companies depends on what they're going to do next. But I really wish, like, the Matt Colville, or MCDM rather, as a company, would reach out to Cobalt Press, would reach out to Pelgrane, who would reach out to um, Cubicle 7 or whatnot, and come up with I think the power could be in their hands to work together to come up with something. But heck, I helped write for N World, and N World already has Level Up Advanced 5th Edition out there, and it's like, will that become illegal? Ugh, right? Or will N World have to, contractually sign up? I mean, like Dojo Breaker brought up, like, what's created now is fine in terms of, it would be difficult to for everyone to bring back what's already released. But by 2024, oh, new stuff. Now that there's an OGL 1.1, or we think there's going to be an OGL 1.1, they set the 13th in the leaked document. So I don't know. Deadman brings up Spelljammer, Shadowrun, BattleTech, and Mech Warrior, Earth Dawn, World of Darkness. Spelljammer is technically Dungeons and Dragons, but there's a how do I explain this? There's a breakpoint in the OSR where it doesn't have anything to do with the OGL. I think it's before third edition. I think anything before third edition is open, because not only do the game systems not exist anymore, but they are like reprints or rewordings and remanufacturings and things like that. So the OSR is sitting back going like, we've been here a while, you guys ran from us, or or maybe we're just a bunch of graybeards and neckbeards going like, yeah, see what's happening. Yeah, we should. I'm so upset at us that I don't think we were naive in thinking about how people would handle the OGL. I think the thing is that we were reasonable. We didn't think, Asmodeus or Asmodeus or whatever would rise up off his throne and go, "I got a document that'll put everybody to shame." I don't think we thought that, which is like 20 years. This OGL's been out there, and it's like, why didn't we think they change it? Because no one thought to change it, right? No one thought to challenge it, and that's my fear. I hear a lot of people going, "Well, here we found evidence that they can't take it back," and I'm going, "Who's got the money to challenge that? Who's got the time to challenge that?" Yeah, the VTTs. Alex mentions WoTC. WoTC bought D&D Beyond. Yep, they purchased it to make it into a VTT they could monetize, and they plan to make AI DMs for all the players who just want to play, but without the work or responsibilities of running a game. At this rate, they'll need AI players as well. Yeah, AI DMs. I don't I don't think it's that far off. I don't think it's going to be like movie level, where it's like it's an AI with a personality, but there's already AI systems that can answer phones and uh, produce conversations. So mixing the video game industry with an AI system that can make a VTT, I don't think that's far off. It's not very far off. If it's just a matter of linking all those elements together. It might cost a lot of money up front, but I think once it's done, won't be a problem. Dojo Breaker says, I wonder if WotC or the VTTs would have more brand loyalty. Ooh. Would people prefer playing on Roll20 more than D&D? I don't know. It's a fidelity thing for me, right? Like, because thinking about that question, so I think you've heard people talk about, like, I like the sound of vinyl or live music versus overproduced music, and it's is the quality of a thing in our brains better for its perfection or imperfection, right? Like I if you're a person who likes the social aspect of Dungeons and Dragons, I don't think you'll ever have a loyalty to a pre-programmed VTT. But if you're someone who's bothered by side talk in games and cats running past cameras and family members you can hear in the background of a microphone because for some reason they just don't understand people being live online and things, if that bothers you a lot when you're trying to play online, yeah, a non-human intervention VTT might be the best thing. Or if it, I mean, if it runs much like an MMO and you're into that, maybe. But I don't know if I don't think you'll get brand loyalty. I mean, the video game industry, I don't think has very much brand loyalty. Once you start doing microtransactions, people leave, drop you in a hot second. So I don't know. I don't. Wow, that's a good question. Mike says I'm not worried about fracturing. Why? Because this time it's less about a piece of the pie and more about diversity. Yeah, the community is choosing this to defend the freedom to create. Now that part I agree, and I think one way to keep the fracturing down to a minimum as what we could do, because I really want to. I have a little bit of a list of what we should or could do proactively, and I think one of the things we can proactively do is ask some of our greatest products from our third party creators to write their already released games with the rule set of another third party creator. So, an example would be Cobalt Press putting out something for Fate in the Fate system or Cipher system, or Cipher system writing, something produced by Cubicle 7 within the Cipher system. Like, I think if the third party, I hate to say this, gets a little incestuous, starts to intermingle a little bit, and re-releases, like much like I mentioned before, Paizo released one of their adventure paths for fifth edition. It was already that adventure path had already been released under their old first edition rules, and it was just sitting on the shelf. I think if some of these third party creators pull something off the shelf and then go, you know what we could do? We could take the fluff, it's a digital document, remove the fluff, take the rules, bring somebody in who knows the rules of, I don't know, OpenD6 or something of that nature, and then releases it again in another system. I mean, how close is Ravenloft 5th edition crap to scrape out the IP and release it for any of the Call of Cthulhu systems? With the sanity rules, I think that would work. There's a ton of grimdark gaming out there about trying to make horror into Dungeons and Dragons and putting that in another system. Yeah, someone mentioned. Let me roll back up here. Oops. Someone mentioned Open D6, and it skipped right past me. Mm-hmm. Oh, Night of Your Life says Open D6 is what I play. That's what I saw. Yeah, Open D6. Okay, so I search for wiki. So just to let me see if I can get this here. Let me copy this. Unfortunately, I'm the only one that can put in links into the chat, so I'm going to put this link in for paste it in here. And so I'm on wiki.rpg.net, and on this document website, it says Open Game Systems. This page collects games released under an open license. Generally speaking, if something is available under an open license, it is free for use and reuse as long as the terms of the license are respected without any explicit contact or negotiation between original author and licensee. It goes on to talk about the differences between an open game license, a Creative Commons license, and there are various versions of a Creative Commons license, and GNU licenses, which are also known as GPLs. And listen, I'm not a lawyer, so you actually need to read the documents, which sometimes for a lot of people like myself is like watching grass grow or paint dry, but there's a lot of them out there. So of course they have listed here, like the original OGL, which some people conflate that for some reason the OGL 1.0 and 1.0A is the OGL for all these other games. That's not true. An OGL is a document, and then other games can use that on their own. It has no relationship to Dungeons and Dragons. But anyway, so examples include 3.5, Pathfinder, D20 Modern, and Dungeons and Dragons 5e. And those courses are listed at the top. And there's, I don't know how updated this document is at wiki.rpg, but I'm sure it's going to be modified within the next couple of months. It's going to have a lot of new names on here. But anyway, there's D20 systems. I don't know how close the D20 systems are to the SRD and OGL 1.0 and 1.0A, but there's D20 Anime, Wayfarers, Prometheus SRD, Mutants and Masterminds, and True 20, and I believe they are made off of the Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 and 5e. There's D6 games like Open D6 and another one called Cinema 6, which I've never heard of Cinema 6, but Open D6 literally states like not only is it open and free, but they ask you to modify it, and I think it's about 80 to 120 pages because I went through this last night. There's a Fudge Base, which is Fate 2.0, Spirit of the Century, and Diaspora. There's other systems like the Iridian system, Runic from RuneQuest. There's something called Spellchrome, which is interesting. Fantasycraft and something called Ebony Fantasy Essence, and that doesn't look like it's an. Oh, it is an open link. There's retro clones like Osric, Labyrinth Lord, BFRB RPG, Basic Fantasy RPG for BX, which is basically known as Basic Expert. Swords and Wizardry, Warrior and Wizard for the Fantasy Trip. What else do we have? Mutant Future, Gore, Fudge, the Versus M engine, and then there's a ton more: Freeform Universal, Gunware, Myriad, Organic Rules Components, Shadowy Yesterday. I've never heard of, but Tiny D10. I wish Tiny D6 would open up theirs. Anyway, 66 RPG, Wushu Open Reloaded, the Simple Game System. Damn, there's a ton of them down there. Anyway, it goes on and on. I don't know. Maybe there's something. There's something else we could do. Night of Your Life says we are all being affected by people whose hobby is making money instead of playing the games. So the most influential players need to decide what we are all going to promote. Yes, and it's I believe we are a microcosm of Hollywood right now. And what I mean by Hollywood is it's the confluence of art and finance. And game creators and designers are that confluence, right? As the game designers and creators, we're artists. Really, we're not really. We Let's not pretend that we're lawyers or accountants, which is really what we would have needed to be to find the fine print, the loopholes in the OGL in the first place, which is like everyone's like, we would have thought we found it. Not necessarily. Let's be clear that they pay lawyers lots of money to find loopholes in contracts, right? That's not for us. Thanks for streaming so early in the morning. I don't know if the word thanks is proper. It would be, why the fuck are you streaming? Maybe that's a better term for than thanks, but I'll take that. I'll take that there, Colin. Oh man. 5:30 a.m. here in Kansas. So this would be like D&D news for me. Yeah, it's kind of it's I used to do years ago. There's like, I don't know, like 1,600 videos on the channel or something, and I used to do pre-recorded stuff, and I feel like I'm talking like an, I don't know, an asshole or like a sphincter. I can't talk to myself. I got to talk to other people, and I really appreciate when people are disagreeable with me, because I like other individuals' points of view. I'm not, I don't want people to necessarily agree with me. I just want to explain my position. I love it when other people disagree but explain their position instead of just going, "Oh, you suck." No. We're grown folks. You're always invited. You know what I mean? That's my thing. Game Master Toolbox says in the 90s, White Wolf took the biggest shelf space, but you also had 7C, forgot about 7C, 5 Rings, Shadowrun is still around, and even Rifts that was big in the 90s. Pretty sure there was Star Wars from West End Games as well. Yeah, that's where the D6 system came from. I believe there was even a legal battle, if I'm not mistaken, about the open D system that is today, where Star Wars took their material, but then West End Games scraped back their game rules out of it. And I think something happened with the original Mayfair DC system for DC Comics system happened there. I think they turned it into Blood of the Hero or something like that. Wow, Alex says I've not bought D&D books since 3.0. Pathfinder all the way for me. Yeah, yeah. It's funny too because this is the first time listen, there before this was released, there was a bit of a division between, say, Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. There was a little bit of tribalism, right? Let's not pretend like there wasn't. We weren't mean mugging each other across the schoolyard with Officer Krumke making sure that the Jets and the Jets and the Sharks didn't get a fight. I mean, we were doing that a bit with each other, right? Now we're just like instead of Pathfinders over there, we're like, yeah, do what you need to do, Paizo, right? And I'm all for that. I'm up for that, big time. Michael says, AI DMs Mega Mech like BattleTech BTT has Princess, their virtual opponent. Going from that to a DM is easy. Yeah. I mean, it would basically be what would you call it? Like a customizable MMO that an AI would just customize the experience. I don't know. That's funny. Instead of ABCs, it's D&D. Yeah. All right, so I see your comment there, Colin. I'm gonna get to that in a minute. Night of Your Life says midday for me, so thank you for the dinner stream. No problems, no problems. I do stream a bit. I can get a little bit wordy and a little bit fuzzy because I'm up at 5 in the morning feeding the cats and getting things together, trying to get something to eat, and then turning on at 6 a.m. So yeah, this channel isn't for everybody, but I appreciate it. Do you watch the Roll for Combat live stream yesterday? Oh, not have I. Well, I can't see it. For those who don't know, I'm a letter carrier in the United States. I'm a mailman, and so I can't watch anything, but I can listen to everything. So I've got unlimited premium YouTube. So I listen to YouTube, and I got my podcast going. And I've been listening to Roll for Combat and the extended family off of Roll for Combat. Yeah. Oh, yes. All of it. I think I've probably listened to about 10 to 15 hours of it. And it's pretty interesting. I disagree with them. I'm sorry. Let me take this back. I agree with them that there's precedent and individuals who will state that the OGL 1.0A was not supposed to be revocable. I agree with them. My stance is, and this is a little doom and gloom, but it doesn't matter if you're right. It matters how much it matters how much money you have and how much time you have to set a precedent, right? So we can claim, he had Ryan Dancy on there, who was one of a number of people who helped craft it. I don't disagree that someone could win a legal argument. RFC, Roll for Combat. I don't disagree. My problem with it is which one of us is going to put their money on the line or has enough money to go to court to fight it, or who's willing to go with not being able to receive any income while a judge says, hey, let's take 6 to 9 months to do a fact-finding thing to allow you to come back to court to make a ruling, right? Now, it would be brilliant if a judge looked at it and went, Hasbro, are you serious? Half hour, stamp, throw it out. No, you can't take it back. It already, like, that would be perfect. That would be a chef's kiss. Is that the case? Not really. We know there are companies out there, billion-dollar companies like Hasbro, not like Hasbro, billion-dollar companies, Hasbro being one of them, who, knowing they will lose, will still kill you. We we have billion-dollar companies that let sick children die, knowing they're going to lose anyway, and still spend the money, right? So stopping third-party creators from using the SRD until they figure something out and a judge figures it out, and Hasbro goes, so, judge, take as long as you want, just as long as you honor the cease and desist. And the judge goes, yeah, hey, listen, Paizo, while we look into this, we're going to come back in 6 months, but until then, I'm going to have to ask you to stop producing anything at all, right? Could they survive without 6 months of income, or producing a product, or getting online and talking about their? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, going to uh Night of Your Life says there was a Ghostbusters D6 as well. Yes there was. And if you guys want to create a fantasy or sci-fi or something game, the Open D6 system is out there, and you can take those rules and break them apart and see what you can create out of it. I'm thinking I might do something like that. I like the Open D6 type of system. I would probably simplify it slightly, but for my own reasons. Colin P says, sorry, I'm a bit new to the channel. So sorry if you've already covered this, but how do you feel about the OSR? I'm loving the OSR right now, just right about now. I'm in that age group. I'm a man of a certain age, so I'm in that OSR age group. But I think the OSR is an example of what I think we are going to become, the new OSR, if that makes sense to anyone. So what I mean by that is the OSR isn't collective, but they have a respect for all of the variations within the OSR. So what I mean by that is, in the OSR, I'm just going to start naming some things like Lamentations of the Flame Princess, Knave / Maze Rats, um, uh, Castles and Crusades, Swords and Wizardry, uh, uh, Osric, BX, Beckme, like OSE, Old School Essentials, etc., BF, Basic Fantasy. The OSR has not kicked them off the playground. They all are like agreeable with each other, to the point that there are people who make OSR materials that they've agreed amongst themselves. Like, for example, THACO, or To Hit Armor Class 0 versus Ascending AC. There are people who put out material and they go, you know what, we'll give you those two options. And they've also made it simple enough that with a very minor tweaks, they could take a stat block. And most OSR stat blocks are basically one line. It's like AC to hit them, hit points, kind of damage, maybe some kind of special effect, and you're done. And so a lot of the OSR understands that their stuff is going to get modified a little bit, and they're willing to buy materials that require a little modification, right? And they've accepted it. They embrace it. They go, oh, your system uses swords and wizardry, but I'll buy it or I'll use it and bring it on. And a lot of that is done with like random charts and little bit of throwback materials, like, oh, we pulled this from OSE, so you guys know where it came from, to understand if it fits or doesn't fit with the way you play your OSR game. So how I feel about it is, I think it's, even though it's only an example of one, it's terrible to take an example of one and make that the example of everything else. But I hope in our context today that we use that as an example of how to treat each other. I don't want us to hate monger and hate mongering is easy dopamine, and it would be easy for us to say, you know, I see people, someone made it like, you know, videos of throwing away their 5e books, and I'm going, yeah, Hasbro didn't have anything to do with making 5e, right? They didn't have anything to do with. I mean, what I mean is they were hands off until they saw the money, and then they stepped in and became the bully, right? So you don't have to throw away your 5e stuff. We don't have to send hate mail at people. We don't have to. If Critical Role signs a contract with 5e and starts producing their next season on sixth edition or one D&D or whatever the new name will be, which will probably just be Dungeons and Dragons, don't hate on them. It, they got to pay people. They're a company. They are not just a bunch of people hanging around. There's probably about 3 times as many people behind the scenes of what you see, and so I don't. Hate's not good. Productive. I'm a person that leans positive, so I would prefer us to build rather than destroy. As a general person. Yeah. Alex was like, hey, if you're missing any 5e books from your collections, keep an eye on eBay. And there's fire sales going out there. PDFs and stuff. There's a bunch of companies out there going, hey, this might be the last of our 5e stuff. Get it while you can. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about picking up a bunch of books of like Forbidden Lands and what's Tollis and some of these other like hard to find or expensive books and get them cheap now before they're gone, because some of the flavor, some of the fluff is pretty good. I can't admit. I mean, I can't deny it. Sorry, Alex says, I'm not sure they even need to fight it in court now. Frog God, Necromancer, and Paizo are already writing a replacement OGL, not in WoTC's control. Paizo have their own SRD already. Yeah, I'm not saying that someone couldn't fight WoTC and Hasbro and win. I'm saying that who's got the money and time? So if they're already creating their own OGLs, they're already creating their own rule systems. If they're already doing it, they're already fleeing, which Hasbro, dummies, didn't realize how powerful of a community we are. We talk to each other. Look what we're doing now. We're not afraid. You know, someone. The rumor is that Hasbro and WoTC leaked the documents. I'm the opposite. I'm hoping somebody inside saw it and said, this is bullshit, and leaked it. That's what I'm hoping happened. I hope somebody signed an NDA, a non disclosure agreement, and we're supposed to keep it hidden, and somebody else saw it and went, I didn't sign that. Leak, nudge, nudge, email, send it out. I think somebody inside did it. We don't realize there might be people inside WoTC that are like, this is bullshit, right? Because how many people from who have worked through TSR and Wizards of the Coast left and became personalities unto themselves? We've seen that. That's a real thing. As a matter of fact, like someone pointed out, all of the people who wrote um, Radiant Citadel, the book from 5e, the Radiant Citadel, and I'll get into your comments there, co-host, but um, every person, and it seems to be not everyone, but mostly across the board, people love the adventure book, the Radiant Citadel. Yes, it was purposefully collected and written by a bunch of people who consider themselves uh, minorities and people of color, and wrote that book. But for the most part, even with people who were detractors before the book came out, went looked at it and went, it's not bad. At a minimum, people think it's okay. All of those individuals were third party creators, because that's where we cut our teeth on a lot of these things as writers. Me, I can actually put myself down as a third party writer. I've written for Onyx Path, I've written for N World, and written for myself, and I've produced materials for 5e, and right now there's we decided in Critical Hit Publishing to scrape out all the rules and reflavor, we redo the fluff, so we have the similar rule set for not rule set gaming stuff for Call of Cthulhu. So my cinematic environs books are actually written for Call of Cthulhu with a modern bent to them and stuff like that. So I'm kind of in that group. Yeah, it's whatever. All right, sorry, co-host. Here we go. Knight says, "Yes, you're right." Ooh, I don't know. Taking wizards to court, it's like poker. If you do not have the cash to see your opponent's cards, you have lost, and that's the argument that afraid people aren't looking at. I'm not saying that they're not looking at themselves being right or wrong. I'm afraid that I'm afraid that a bullies don't fight fair. Bullies use baseball bats and a large crowd and intimidation and corner you. Hasbro is able to do that with money and time. That's their baseball bat, and I'm afraid they can use cease and desists, they can use lawsuits, they can extend out a court battle beyond our ability to outspend them. They can outwork us because they have lawyers on staff. They pay Hasbro, major company, billion-dollar companies have lawyers working 24/7. That's their job. They pay them to do this. While what we're thinking about now on the side online is what they do for their careers. And don't best believe they're thinking of what we're thinking of. Best believe that. So yeah, Knight. Um, Pete, Colin Pete, Pate says, "Yeah, I dig the inclusivity and experimentation of the OSR. They are the OSR community is extremely open to crazy, bizarre, out of this world. I mean, there's OSR books that are literally hand drawn down in the corners and off on the sides, and like it's some bizarre, crazy sci-fi fantasy kind of concepts. And the OSR is like, let's see it. What do you got? And what's Electric Bastion Lands, Ultraviolet Grasslands, Tr- Trioka, uh, Trioka or something. Oh, there's a bunch of them out there that's just bizarre. Morkborg is kind of considered to be an OSR thing. Uh, mm. Oh yeah, Alex mentions Frog God Games PDFs, 50% off. Yeah, there's a fire sale on 5e stuff. Un- Strangely enough, you might want to pick it up. Right? 20 2023 is going to be horrible. 2024 is going to be the worst. You know, now as a bully on a schoolyard, they're just jabbing us in the face, right? They're pop, pop, pop. Just a little flick, little sting on the nose and the chin. You know what I mean? While all the kids around are like wondering what's going to happen. 2024, they're all going to start to laugh at us. They're going to break a bottle, and Officer Crumpy's going to have to come in and stop us from fighting. Listen, yeah, we're going to have our wrists tied together, and yeah, Colin says, I like questing beasts referring to the OSR and its amorphous nature as folk D&D compared to 5e. Yeah, which I thought was cool. Folk D&D. I forgot he referred to it that way. I love questing beasts. I like his presentation and a little bit of he's got a little snarkiness in him, but it's all in fun, and he definitely leaves his self open for ideas, which I like. I like him as one of a number of OSR like spokespeople, I guess. Uh, Diplomat, envoy. uh, uh, um, I guess he got volunteered into that position. I don't know. Uh, Alex says I read earlier Beyond D&D Beyond staff are planning to mass quit tomorrow. Some already left. Yeah. Honestly, I bet if we went back about 2 to 3 years and noted all of the departures from Wizards of the Coast, I think we might have read what was going to happen in the future. I can't guarantee that, but part of my brain just remembers just being, me just perusing and finding out what's happening in the industry. Like, I swear they've probably had like a 75% turnover rate. I don't know if that's true, but I feel like that's close. I feel like they had a. I feel like today is not the staff that was there like 5 years ago or nearly. Deadman says the guys who wrote Eclipse Phase First Edition worked with Catalyst Games Lab on Shadowrun IP, and Eclipse Phase put out a Fate version of their own game, right? Catalyst, thank you for bringing up Catalyst Games Lab. Yep, which used to be or was partnered with Posthuman Studios, and that broke up. Mm. Educate me there, Deadman. But yeah. Colin says, yeah, just bought Rapan Aktuk. Is that? Hmm. That sounds familiar. That sounds familiar, but I can't. My mind can't picture the cover. Dojo says, Dojo Breaker says, I am definitely inspired to go back to hacking Pendragon, ooh, and Blood Feud for a Pokemon campaign. I wasn't expecting to read that. I was, it would be pretty R rated. It would be pretty adult, but yes. Oh, rap. I know I'm butchering the pronunciation. Rapana took is Frog God's mega dungeon with Orcus at the end and stuff. Yeah, and someone put out a. Is it Shadow of the Demon Lord that put out a living dungeon? It's like inside of a huge ass world sized monster or something like that. Mm-mm-mm. That's pretty cool. I wish you. I don't think I can change the idea of you guys putting in some kind of links or something. So, okay, we're getting to the end here. So, very quick, here's some things I think we could do. First of all, pick one or two of your favorite third party creators and follow them. What they're doing, follow their posts, and converse with them. Be nice, be kind. Tell them, I love what you do. Why don't you work with Cubicle 7? Excuse me, why don't you work with Fraud God Games? Whatever, Catalyst Games, or whatever. We would love for you, this product you already created, why don't you work with them and make this product in their system as well? And vice versa, right? Work with them. Two, I would say that let's not be evil for evil's sake, despite the fact that the pits of hell opened up and they're releasing the hordes. I would say let's stick our ground. Let's be the paladins and the and the let's move towards the lawful and or good side of this of the 9 block spectrum of alignment and try to keep ourselves um, uh, inclusive when we start to fracture. Because if we fracture too much, we're going to start to tribalize, and it'll be my new open OGL against your new open OGL. I would suggest that if you guys definitely, because listen, this is happening at the same time as the Dungeon 23, which I got distracted from, but I'm going to get back into this weekend. The Dungeon 2023 not contest challenge to what write a room make a mega dungeon every day, write a room and such. What I think would be awesome is for a bunch of us as creators to pick one, two or three systems and write something for a bunch of different systems. One concept, different systems. Oh, I wrote it for Fate, Cipher System, and Open D6 or something like that. Like, that would be horribly convoluted, but it's possible. Because remember, the fluff doesn't really matter. It's just the rule set that matters. And what you could do is just use what did the 1.1 say? Use a different color or different font, right? Do that. Deadman mentions Posthuman Studios' original developers split off from Catalyst Games, Game Labs, and launched Eclipse Phase. The split happened after the head of Catalyst got caught mixing company funds and personal funds. Ooh, yeah, that'll break up friends and companies. Yeah, when you do stuff like that. Um, yeah, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Isn't that the thing? And money is power. You see a lot of money. Even if you didn't mean anything by it, yeah, you shouldn't do that. That's what integrity is: doing the right thing when nobody's looking. Alex says, I feel sorry for ex Paizo staff who left to join WoTC last year. Ooh, I didn't know that. Can't be fun to be caught on the wrong side of this. Yeah. Eesh. Night of your life. You do make a good point. What happened to the idea of generic games books like, I don't know, GURPS and stuff? Yeah, whatever. Well, okay, I'll say this. Um, the trying to please the entire RPG community is pretty difficult. And so what I think happened was individual RPG creators, all of us, have our own desire for what a game system should do. And so therefore being niche is, I think, what happened, that we started seeing ourselves, hey, I can't please everyone, but I sure can capture these folks. So an example would be writing for, okay, an example, interpersonal, semi-romantic relationship role-playing games, right? Those kind of games like Masks or the teenage drama role playing games. That's a pretty niche role playing community, and I think the writers of those games went, if I just capture them and make them loyal, I can start to make money and survive off of them, not the entire community. So, Night of Your Life, I think that's probably what happened, because the biggest names will never, they're never going to do that. They're never going to make a hyper niche system like that. And so, yeah, the Genesis system off of, uh, no, Cypher system is its own. Genesis is off of Fantasy Flight Games system. GURPS it still exists, which is, GURPS is kind of, can become kind of a punching bag, but GURPS is still around. They make some of the best supplemental books, though. I gotta admit, Steve Jackson. Some people have a problem with Steve Jackson games for some reason, and I don't know the drama behind that. Savage Worlds is Universal, a generic system. Is basic role playing through Chaosium. I don't know. I would say also that because the RPG community has been growing like nearly exponentially, that like tribes, a tribe can't exist too large or it starts eating itself and getting rid of its own resources. So it's better for us to drop down into a silo of some sort or another. And so I think while there are people who are extreme fans of generic role playing systems, Rifts is one. Yeah, Rifts still exists. Yep. And Rifts convert. Yeah, they converted Rifts to Savage Worlds too. Yep, they sure did. So maybe they were ahead of the game. I just don't see people promoting generic systems. So I'm with you. I don't I don't really see people out there going like generic system, generic system. I think because in our heads most generic systems lose a little bit to try to please everyone for everything. Um, some generic systems don't have uh, like if it has a robust magic system, its sci-fi system might be lacking. Or if they have a really great psionics system, they lack a like a bestiary that's pretty good, or something like that. Uh, Riffs is a punching bag too for being like Riffs is Palladium, and Riffs is like unapologetically unbalanced. I still have couple of my Riffs books left. I sent some away to someone that was a member of the channel, mailed it to him. He didn't purchase it. He sent me like a $50 like super chat. I was like, "What, dude? What?" So I just sent him my books. I didn't care. Alex says, I heard of a free one-page RPG named Vampires Suck at Shopping. I've never played it, but it sounds hella fun. A lot of those micro games are like that, right? Like what is it? Bob the World Builder just put out a video about one of his favorite games. It's like a simple game PDF called Skateboard Wizards, and like you play wizards that go around trying to save the world on skateboards. It's little things like that. Heck, I made my own one-page RPG, and it was a D6 system. I can easily explain it to you now. D6 system, you adjective, noun, that verbs. So you could be a billionaire playboy who's urban ninja billionaire playboy who seeks justice or something like that. And for each of your adjective, noun, and or verb that applies, you roll a d6, and then if you are injured, you lose an access to one of your descriptors. So, like, if you were a billionaire playboy urban ninja that seeks justice, and you got hurt, you could lose your billionaire-ism, right? You don't have access to your billionaire-ism. Now, does that make sense in combat? Well, yes, but no, because story-wise, you could say, well, maybe Batman is out fighting crime, and they try to remove him as CEO from Wayne Enterprises or something like that. Yeah, Alex says, yeah, I heard of Skateboard Wizards yesterday. Yeah, is I think the gumshoe system for Pelgrane is generic. Maybe it is because uh bubblegum shoe is a derivation of the gumshoe system, so that's possible as well from a Pelgrane. Yeah, I don't know. There's a ton of them out there. Listen, we do have enough time, but I say, at least in this part of the corner, and I hope we spread it out from here. Let's be proactive. Let's follow some of our third party people, um, and find out, like, hey, what are you doing? Here's a idea that you can do. Spread some of these open OGL games out there that are not part of Dungeons and Dragons. Spread them out and go, hey guys, why don't you have you ever thought about using this system or whatever? That kind of thing. So Mario says, this is alive. Oh well. I will be posting up my own game system a little later today for people to read through and judge. Absolutely. And here's another thing that I would like to add for for the people out there. Um, as creators, Dungeon 23, if you're creating your own system, be aware right past your own failure. Right? So if it's not that good, or you think what you wrote, or people judge it and they go, it's not for me, keep writing right past that. Continue to create past your own failure, meaning like nothing ever survives the first draft. So it's going to have to survive, pretty rigorous eyes, grow that thick skin, and just survive. So guys, thank you so much. As always, run a little late here. Thank you very much for just being part of the show. Thanks, Z. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody out there. I appreciate those who refound the show and the channel, was still stuck around, and everybody have a great one night. No, thank you guys. As I said before, when I say you guys are co-hosts, while it sounds a little sarcastic, it's actually a real thing. You guys are the co-hosts that gives me energy to get up at friggin' 5 a.m. to want to start this before I go to work. For those who don't know, here in the United States, we have a huge labor shortage. So I pretty much work 12-hour days every day, 6 days a week. It's rough. It's been, and role-playing games, despite the exhaustion, are the thing that keeping me awake. The only reason I was able to come back to the channel is because they changed our start time from like 6:30 in the morning, which means I would probably have to get up at like 4:30 or 4 in the morning to even do a show. Now they moved us to 8, so we're working like 8 to 8 because of staffing issues with getting mail processed. Anyway, it's a whole big thing. So anyway, back to the outro music. Guys, have a great one. Thank you so much. I'll see you later. Bye.